Welcome to Big Questions. This is Cal Bussman, an old school guy who's showing you where the future is headed. Today's episode looks at the future through a visionary. In fact, a visionary honored by Time magazine. Byron V. Garrett, the CEO of Genesys Works. I think it's important that you hear what Genesys Works and Byron are doing because we keep hearing about how artificial intelligence is removing entry-level positions and might be staffed by college and high school students. Garrett and Genesys Works are showing how high school students in the most underserved and difficult areas are succeeding because they're being taught the digital and office skills that make them appealing to corporations. There's even a draft day like you see in the National Football League and the National Basketball Association, where these high school students are selected to work with major companies like JP Chase, Target, Deloitte, and more than 240 others in 9 cities. It's proof that with the right training, even the most marginalized can move confidently into the future alongside AI. 75% of the students who receive these internships make more than one of their parents while they're going through the internship, or some even both of their parents. Since Genesys Works got started in 2002, it's lifted more than 14,000 high school students. 90% of their alumni go to college. This is not an AI story of doomsday and dystopia. It's a story of blue skies and promise for those who can get the training. At the end of this conversation with Byron, I'm going to tell you about my sponsor, Moments by Luxury Concierge Travel. I'm simply going to play pieces of authentic conversations I've had with employees who've done exceptional work and were sent on reward trips by their companies. Reward trips that were prepared by the white glove concierge team of Moments. I hope the sort of gushing feedback you hear on those videos about that white glove concierge staff is exactly what every student prepared by Genesys Works receives when their internship is over. But first, let's go straight to Byron Garrett, visionary. It's great to have you with us today, Byron. Big questions for you. As far as young people, specifically young people in underserved communities, teenagers who could use jobs, and what's going to happen to them this summer, next summer, summer after that. Do you see a decline in those jobs?
Yeah, and thanks for having me on. I mean, there are a number of things associated with what you just asked. And the first thing I would say is that as a national organization, Genesys Works, as you know, we operate in 9 markets across the country. And we had to cut off registration at every market, meaning because we don't want to oversubscribe. We don't want to over-enroll the number of young people that enter our program for our summer training and then not have opportunities to place them in. So we're very diligent around how many folks come into the program that we'll actually have a seat for. But specifically to your question, I won't necessarily say the pool is shrinking. I think the types of jobs people are seeking for and the skill set that's required now looks different. 3 years ago, we were not talking about teaching a 17 or 18-year-old cybersecurity or Power BI or how to utilize all the AI tools from Copilot to Gemini. But instead, this year, we know that that's where the business marketplace is. So we made a pivot in our summer training to incorporate those things to further give those young people from these disadvantaged backgrounds an opportunity to be ready to go on day one when they go to work. We can always use more corporate partners. That is a fact. That's not new. I was a high school intern back in the day, and I knew I had other friends who were not as fortunate as me to secure one. So there's always a mismatch between the number of students available. You know, we tell people talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And so we steadily work day in and day out to cultivate new relationships with corporate partners and organizations so that more young people have these opportunities available. to prepare them. And I don't know that AI is lessening that. It's just us helping corporations think differently around what a young person can deliver in the work environment.
I'm listening to this, and I'm wondering, is AI giving those teenagers a chance to level up in a huge way that you might not have had back when you got that high school internship?
You're exactly right. It does give them an opportunity because I don't know about you. I was the inquisitive kid from birth. I asked a million questions. And as you and I know, artificial intelligence and generative AI is about the ability to ask the right question or series of questions to get the right outcomes. And so one would argue that young people in this day and age are what we call AI native. They know this and have this innate ability to operate a phone without any instructions. They can operate a device without, they know how to hook it up and connect it because it's like innate to them. And so in the work environment, we hear employers across the board tout the success of our young people to be ready, willing, and able to engage in ways that full-time professionals may not be. And so they don't get the outcome they want on the first or second time. They don't say, oh, this is bad AI. They say, let me ask this question 12 other different ways because I'm going to get the outcome. Or I may compare AI sources that I use, different platforms, to see and verify, to trust and verify which of these give the best answer and output. And so I would say that young people are at an extreme advantage in that regard, in their ability to ask the right question. But I also tell people they've got to be technically literate to also process the outcome to figure out how do I make business adjustments that may impact the economy.
So when you look at a 15 or a 16-year-old now, and I ask this for a specific question or for a specific reason, I was just talking to a 19-year-old guy who basically skipped college and started a media company, and he's doing fantastic. And he's now speaking at colleges. And you know what he told me? He said, Cal, watch the 15 and 16-year-olds. Watch them carefully. They've got this. And you're kind of telling me the same thing, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you, Cal, it's a new economy, right? And for a long time, we want to argue you have to have a 4-year degree. That is the only pathway to career success. But now we see such a dearth of entrepreneurs or folks that are interested in the social sector, unlike ever before. But what it means is programs like Genesys Works, we've got to do a better job of equipping young people with the skill set to be ready to go to work on day one. And so, yes, I say watch the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old because they're looking to explore different pathways in this new economy that may not require the same level of academic preparation. It probably requires a different type of skill set, critical thinking, reasoning, and logic in ways that make sense to utilize technology to accelerate outcomes as opposed to a decelerant.
The 15 or 16-year-old, are they seeing the future through this doomsday and dystopian narrative? Or do they see it as, hey, I can jump right in?
I believe it depends who you talk to. You know, one of the beautiful things about our summer training program is that we meet that student who has a good skill set. They're on track to graduate, but they're probably going to be the first in their family to go to college, the first in their family to have a professional setting. And so it's not that they saw it as a doomsday, but they may not have ever been exposed to the possibility that you could work in the corporate tower downtown in New York City or Chicago or Jacksonville or Nashville. And so what we find market after market, and I've traveled this entire country, both in this role and other roles, that young people, when you give them the right opportunity and you give them the tools that are necessary to be effective, they not only rise to meet, but often exceed the expectation. And so I think many of them come with this perspective of it is actually possible. They come from the Nike era. Just do it. Like, I always tell people, they're like, I'm going to try. I'm like, don't try. You either lift your arm or you don't. It's like Yoda from the great Star Wars series. You either do or you do not. And this generation, they believe it's possible until they found 50 million reasons to tell them it's not. They're going to ask a different way to get a better outcome and to build a better program or system.
So just your gauge on the world when you look at, say, somebody who's 48, 49 years old, maybe they are trying to put a kid through college, and the landscape that they're looking at, they've been told, is very scary. You can easily be replaced. If AI can do what you do, of course, the employer is going to choose an employee that can work 24 straight hours, that doesn't need to be paid, and it doesn't need health insurance. I'm just wondering, listening to you, if that narrative is hitting those people harder than it is the 15-year-olds that Genesys Works is trying to lift up.
Well, I think it hits the working professional differently because they see jobs move, shift, and you're in the environment in real time as a fully functioning adult professional. And so you have a different view that's informing what you see in terms of situation and circumstance. Whether that company does a reduction in force, whether it does offshoring or outsourcing, depending upon what terminology they need. If it's a publicly traded company, everyone's trying to manage to what the expectations are on Wall Street. And so I don't know that a high school student sees it the same way from that perspective. They are still looking to see what's actually possible, what the opportunity is, and how do I prepare myself to take advantage of it. I will also tell you on the other side of that equation, though, I hear from corporate partners across this country in every market who are thankful that we are creating a group of young people that have the skill set, the ingenuity, the innovative thinking to fit and help them meet today's demand. I was talking with one of our partners in New York a couple months ago who said, I'm thankful that we have this young person sitting here because they're willing to try and do things in ways that my full-time employees are not. Either they don't think it's possible, they don't trust the technology, they think they may get replaced if it does it better or faster, whereas the 17-year-old Genesys Works young professional, that's not their consideration. Their consideration is, how can I do more? Their appetite is stronger. How can I work in the summer break? How can I extend my time? Because this is such a fulfilling experience. And I'm contributing in such a way that it's not just the fluff paperwork of can you copy this or run and get me coffee, but they're doing substantive, meaty business projects. It's a different world for a 17 or 18-year-old in our program that's going to work in an office for a Fortune 500 company than it was when I was an intern many decades ago.
This is where I was going to take you. And I was going to bring up the example. There was a high school student in Pasadena, California, Mateo Paz, who basically was able to get a mentor and take data that NASA had basically pushed to the side and find like 1.5 million new planets and sites out there in the universe that nobody knew about. He did it with AI.
Astounding.
And this is what I'm thinking when I'm listening to you, that those 15-year-olds that you're working with at Genesys Works are thinking this way.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify, most of our students are more in the 17, 18 range. So you're going to join us at the end of your junior year, and then you'll do your internship your senior year. But you're exactly right. I've got an intern working in Tulsa, Oklahoma that I met during my spring travels that works for a relatively large oil and gas company. And he sits on an AI team where you may have had a clerk or a specialist take a 2,000 or 3,000 page document, and it may have taken them weeks to figure out, how do I parse this? This piece goes to Marcom. This is for finance. This is for legal review. But part of his role is to write code and script to help further distinguish, how do I break down the time it takes for us to allocate? Now, it does require him to come back in and verify that the information is correct before it's officially routed. But what may have been a 2 or 3 week process now is reduced to a matter of a couple of days. And so what we see are corporations saying, what is the efficiency? What's the cost savings? It's not so much about the replacement, but how does it allow us to accelerate what we do with a higher level of excellence, with a quicker return, so that we can take on more clients or produce more products? It's a matter of how you think about the utilization of it. Technology is always going to be pushing us as humans, but it's pushing us from a business perspective. And I will say, in every iteration that I've seen in my lifetime, while I didn't always go willingly, I knew that by the time I arrived, the level of success attained because it allowed me to be enabled to be quicker or faster or more efficient or more detailed. It takes people some time to adjust to that, but we know the technological advances do allow us. It's an enabler more so than something that's detracting from the meaningful work environment. I was in Chicago for one of our graduations last week. We have a student who's 17, I believe just turned 18. He was at our graduation on Thursday getting his recognition for end of the year. His school graduation was that Saturday, and he was starting to work at his company on that Tuesday. That young man is going to be making $70,000 a year as an 18-year-old. I haven't looked at the family dynamics, but I'm fairly certain he's making as much or possibly more than his parents, which is not uncommon for our program. We see our students within 3 to 5 years after being connected to us as an intern and then an alum, out earning their parents without question. And so the skill set of what a Genesys Works young professional brings to the table is why corporations say, wow, this young person designed a program, it saved me $2 million. This young professional is the number one processor of loans for closing out tickets in this particular region as a part-time. And as a reminder, our folks are working part-time. They go to school half the day and they're working the second half of the day. So they're not even full-time employees, but they're effectively competing and delivering results just as a full-time employee would. That's the distinction that we see in the work environment. And I could tell you that for one Fortune 500 company, I could tell you that for 30 of them, because we see it around the country in all 9 of our markets.
Why wouldn't every company that wanted to get into this space immediately be knocking on your door to say, hey, can you send us more?
That's the question, right? And so part of it is budget realities, right? People have to manage the head count. Thankfully, in this case, our interns are employees of Genesys Works because some corporations also have challenges with, they're a minor. I don't know if I want the liability. We have to explain to them we carry the liability. We cover those types of things. We also pair them with a PC on the program side who manages the relationship between the employee supervisor and the young professional to make sure that they are being accountable in performance management. And so for us, it's a matter of us telling the story in a way that makes sense in business. And we're seeing people respond to that conversation. The other thing, I'll be candid, if you are an executive and you haven't been through a similar program and you have a high schooler at home, I'm not going to say your high schooler is not awesome. They're probably equally amazing, but they're probably not as hungry and not as driven and ambitious as those young people that we see in our program. And so sometimes people are like, it's not possible. I know who I have laying home at 17. He is not doing these types of things, but you're telling me to believe you that this 17-year-old can do this? And the reality is, it is true because we see it day in and day out, the type of grit that these young people bring to the work environment. And then they stay in our alumni program, and most go on to college, but many of them also go to work and or college at the same time.
Help me out when I'm thinking about the young student in an underserved area that is not in your program, that doesn't have those advantages.
That's right.
And is at a loss for getting a job now.
Right.
What happens to that child in that scenario?
Well, I live in the DC area, and so we know the reality, and especially whether it's urban communities, but it's also in rural America where opportunities may be limited or they may be less. And yet you have this young population that need to direct their energy and activity in some way, shape, or form. And so not to disparage McDonald's could be great. Walmart could be great. A pathway to a career with longstanding success is even better. And so for those young people that don't get access to these opportunities, we see them show up in our systems in other ways. They're not necessarily adjudicated, but they're also not necessarily a contributor to the tax base or a contributor to the local economy. When I think about the young people that have gone through our program and those that are going through and just signed up for the summer, I know for a fact that they will yield millions of dollars because remember, it is a paid internship. So these are millions of dollars that are going into the pockets of these young professionals at the age of 17 and 18. And then whether they're having to help pay bills at the house or just become more self-sufficient or handle their prom expense, those things are cost alleviating for the household budget. And so there are those that don't get that opportunity. One would wonder and ask, where do they end up going? And I would say, unfortunately, seeing both sides of the spectrum, a knowledge economy and skills economy, we see many of them go by the wayside, which is why we're focused on saying all of these young people have talent, but they need an opportunity so they can channel and direct that in the right way to get on a career pathway to be a viable, productive citizen and contributor to their local economy.
If somebody who's 15, 16, 17, 18 now is not educated on the computer, in AI, what does that mean for them?
Well, they're operating at a disadvantage, right? And so whether that's a young person or whether that's an adult, your ability to use technology to its advantage is critical in this day and age. And that doesn't mean every job's an office job that I'm going to be sitting here typing memos or drafting PowerPoint presentations. I could be working in a data center and I could be a data scientist. I mean, it depends on the skill set and the role that you're looking at. And so, but every single role, automation, mechanics, production, all of those things now have some type of technical component that requires some technological knowledge and skill set to navigate the work environment. If you think about it, even when you go purchase something now, oftentimes it's technology. Those we don't think about that as being a skill set, but even understanding how to then interface with a customer who may not know or may not be as comfortable using tap technology, and to have the skill set to pivot in real time to still cater to that customer's need. I just think young people in this day and age, they see the world through a very different lens, and we try to prepare them with the professional skill set so that they can make those pivots in real time.
You know, you mentioned before the iterations that you've seen in your lifetime, and I did a little research, and I found out you went to Harvard in some way, shape, or form to get a certificate in AI.
Focused on AI, yeah.
What was your thinking when you decided to do that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. My thinking on that was twofold. One, it is difficult to lead a conversation around something that you're not experienced in, meaning I have used AI in my personal life for personal activities, family related stuff. But how can I talk about young people being proficient in the work environment when we're not even an AI ready organization, meaning our staff haven't been there and gotten credentials? And so I decided it was important for me to get an additional certification credential to understand through the business lens, how do I lead authentically in this space? That's the first. And then the second was I genuinely wanted to better understand how we can equip our young professionals to be more effective and our regular staff to be more effective utilizing AI. And so it's not just as simple, I tell people using Chat or Gemini or Claude, that's one thing. It's another thing on the business side to say, what are the AI policies? What's the governance? What's appropriate usage? How do we ensure that our proprietary information doesn't end up in a public search? And so there are some challenges like that, but I decided to get additional knowledge and information and education so that I could be a more informed leader, so I could lead through that particular lens authentically, not because of what I read or heard, but because I've now experienced and put into practice myself.
How did you feel when you got the certificate?
Part of it was like, okay, this is part confirmation of what I already know. But then there was another part because my cohort was international. So we've got folks, some in nonprofits, some in corporate, some in government from around the world. I realized that this conversation is not a U.S. conversation. It's not an Asia conversation. This is a global discussion. And it is not about where we're going to be. It is about where we are right now in real time. And those folks who adopt the process, who get engaged and figure out competitive solutions will remain at an advantage over those who continue to trail behind.
Well, it's uplifting. And when I think of those who are going to be left behind, it's going to be really scary because
that's right.
I don't know where they go.
Well, because some people, I think to your point, they're going to be even further than away from opportunity. So it's one issue of opportunities not being available in your immediate marketplace. It's another thing being prepared for those opportunities. And then it's another thing when you don't even understand what is necessary to enter the race to effectively compete should the opportunity present itself. And so we steadily strive to close that particular gap. It is not uncommon, as I mentioned, for our young professionals to be the first of many in their household. The first to go to college, the first to be in the office, the first to have a true professional job. The first to be approaching six figures in salary or make six figures at an appropriate time as we approach our 25th anniversary. We've got some amazing alums down throughout the history of our program that have gone on to be corporate leaders and titans in their own respective communities. And so I do grow and share the same concern that you and others do around, but what about those who are not in the program? Or what about those that we cannot accommodate, which is why it is so important. I would say, please, ma'am, please, sir, him, her, them, they. If you have a need for an intern or a young professional, do not discount what a young person has the ability to do. Reach out to us at Genesys Works. We would love to talk with you about the power of a young person, because be careful. The toes that you step on today are attached to the foot that will kick you out of your office tomorrow.
Oh, you were preparing that line for a long time.
Hey, it's a fact. It's a fact.
That's really well said. I'm also wondering, when you see all these students trying to get into the program, and you just told me earlier on that we got to hold the doors because we can't let everybody in if we don't have jobs for them or ways. Would they all get trained, or do you not even have all the people who can train them to take those jobs?
Yeah, no, and we do. So we're really clear about how many young professionals we enroll in our summer training program to match the number of internship opportunities that have been identified for the upcoming year. And then what we call draft day or signing day, which is essentially like an athlete waits to decide where they're committing to, or you commit to whatever NFL or NBA or hockey team and so forth. Our young folks are then committed to on our behalf, whether it's Accenture or Williams, whether it's Atka, those types of companies. And we have a huge celebration recognizing that, because we believe that is as important as the college that you decide to go to, because this is the first step in your professional career. You will look back on this moment. I just went to most of our graduations around the country. I heard it every single time from various students, different backgrounds, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, all talked about, this was my start. This is what's gotten me on the pathway. This has unlocked this opportunity for me. And so we call it draft day or signing day. You have to get out and catch one of those because it is quite phenomenal to see them get matched with their corporate partner, and then to talk to them at the end of the internship. And they tell you, I was shy. I didn't really speak. I didn't really look up. I didn't really contribute. And then over time, not months, but weeks, they just literally blossom like a flower in the work environment. And to hear their supervisors say the exact same thing, he was quiet, or we wasn't sure if it was going to work out, but oh my goodness, these are the projects they ran with. And now I can go back to my hybrid schedule. They work in the office Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they have discipline to be working from home on Thursday and Friday and still complete their projects like any other professional would. That is the caliber of person that we produce at Genesys Works. And we're thankful for our corporate partners that allow us to place them in their organizations with trust and care.
Okay, now I got to know about draft day. Like, do you have it in a place where you've got like a room where all the top picks are waiting? How does it work?
It is. It's kind of like that. And so this will be, I've been in my role now 7 going on 8 months. So this will be my first cycle seeing draft day. But like, I was out in the Bay Area not long ago. We're working with the particular sports team there. I won't say who, to say, hey, could we do our draft day event in your facility? Right? Still playing on this idea of how it works for sports, because everybody understands that. They know that, this person is going to go to this team and that means success. We need the families and the community partners to also understand when this student or this young professional, as we call them, makes this commitment, it's the same type. But in each market, it varies. In some cases, it could be at a university. In some cases, it could be at a corporate tower or office. But they're all in amazing business locations. It just depends on which market and which partner has decided to sponsor and help support that particular day. But I will tell you, it is one of the biggest days of the year for us in each market, because it's the one that the young professional has been waiting for. They're going to graduate from summer training, and then they're going to go and find out where their intern is going to be that they'll work on throughout their entire high school year, half of the day.
How do they get the news? Is this something that's delivered over the internet, or is everybody?
Oh, no, they're at the event. Like, you're at the day and you get matched.
Do you get called out? Like the commissioner Are you up
Yeah,
there like the
and
commissioner?
it's kind of like our graduation ceremonies, as we call them. We call them breaking through ceremonies. You're breaking through the process into adulthood, if you will. Same type of thing. Very much like a graduation, where you're going to call them up. They get a stole. This is the other side of it. Here's your corporate assignment. This is going to be your supervisor. This is who you'll report to. And as you can imagine, for a family, I used to think before I came to the role, they're most excited because they're going to be making $15, $17 an hour, depending upon the market they're in across the country. And all of them have continuously told me, Mr. Garrett, I appreciate the money I'm making, but it's the skill set and opportunity, because I know for a fact that money is not nothing in comparison to what I'll be doing 3 or 4 years from now. And had it not been for this Genesys Works internship, I would not be on the same pathway. Most of them didn't know what FAFSA was till our program coordinators helped them fill it out so that they could go to college and complete their applications and scholarship requests. And so we know that it's such a well-rounded program that when you have a moment like draft day, it's such an iconic moment for them and for us and for the company, because the company is also looking to see who's the next person that's coming in, what next brilliant light is going to be helping infiltrate my work environment to improve it, because we know it's going to be better after they finish than it was when they got here.
So are the companies like competing? Are they looking at all the candidates and
No,
trying
and
to? How does
it's
that
not
work?
so much. It's not so much from that perspective. Our program teams in each market do a tremendous job in understanding what the position is from whatever company, what role that might be. If you're in construction, maybe it's a project management role. That's very different than if you had a role in procurement and cost estimation, which requires more math. And so they're going to look at the position description for that particular role, and then they look at the class of young professionals to determine, well, this young professional has the best skill set that aligns with what you need. And the other thing that's a consideration, they're also young professionals that are very clear. I want to be in healthcare. So out of all the companies you can match me with, please match me with a healthcare company. Or I want to be in technology. The young man I mentioned that's going to be making the $70,000 in Chicago, he knew when he started that program that he wanted to work in technology for a major company. And he was very clear. He had articulated that to the program team. He showed up throughout the year, letting people know this is what happened, what he wanted to happen. And now that company thought so much of his success and his preparation that they offered him full-time employment. And so it's a combination of what does the business need, but us also looking at the skill set for the young professional to really match them to make sure that it's going to be a win-win on both sides.
What are some of these celebrations like?
Oh, well, so we have what we call intern reflection ceremonies or intern reflection celebrations. That's closer to the end of an intern's time, where they'll get a group of managers. Oftentimes it could be the executive team for a company, and they're going to present, this is who I am. This is what I've done. You may know of the projects, but these are folks who probably are not the intern supervisor, but it's open to various members of the company, and people come out to hear them share their story around how they progressed or how they blossomed and grew up as a professional in the environment. But they're fun and jovial, and they're incredibly supportive. The camaraderie, I will say, not only by the families and our team, but also the camaraderie of the employees. They are proud to say, for some people, this is their first supervisory experience. And so they love the program because it's helping fine tune their skill set as a manager. And it's showing to their leadership, I do have the ability to manage. It was a young professional, but I'm still managing them on projects against deadlines. And so it's a very reflective moment. Oftentimes they can be emotionally charged as well, because you're like, wow, I did it. Like, I really did this. I started here 9 months ago at the beginning of the school year. And now as I look back over my internship, my posture has changed. How I show up, my executive presence, the network that I've developed, all of those things are things worth celebrating. And we don't wait till one single moment to celebrate that. It's a continuous process. But we do have defined moments in time to make sure that we don't overlook, in a society that is so filled with so much, we can easily overlook what we consider small wins or successes. But having a young person be on the right pathway, there is no better success, because we know that is one more seat that's guaranteed for the future for someone to contribute to our society in a positive way.
And the sponsor of this podcast is a company called Moments. And what it does is it's a white glove concierge team that arranges trips for companies
Hmm.
to pass on to employees who do great work.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about those celebrations, I was thinking, do many of these kids ever get a chance to go off on a vacation to Paris or on a safari or out to Asia?
Not through our program, but we would be more than welcome and interested to have conversations with any company or individual or foundation that would like to fund those types of moments. We're so focused on making sure that the young professional has what they need to navigate the space. We don't have the budget, quite honestly, to celebrate them and say, let's send 700 amazing young people on international trips. And most of them will tell you, while that's great, they're more excited to know that they've got a full-time job to return to, or they've gotten a scholarship, or they've gotten some type of award or a trade certificate that leads them on a pathway that will enable at some point in time for them to do the things that you just mentioned. But if you know of any partners, feel free to have them reach out. Or if you're listening or tuning in, feel free to contact us at Genesys Works. We would love to explore that and make those types of opportunities available to our young professionals.
Okay. How does somebody reach out to you at Genesys Works? What's the best
So I
way?
tell people the easiest thing is just to go to genesysworks.org, and it's GENESYS works, WORKS.org. That's the easiest way. We're also on social, so you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on LinkedIn, you can find us on TikTok. Our LinkedIn page, we post and chronicle like my travels, what's happening in the various programs across the country. And, I'll tell people if they don't know, if you're in New York City, Chicago, the Twin Cities, Houston, Nashville, Jacksonville, the Bay, or DC, you can find a Genesys Works program that has amazing young professionals and staff that are waiting to have a conversation with you about why we need folks to be interns in your organization.
Well, I want to say thank you. This was one of those conversations that is the reason for this podcast, because when I keep hearing about AI, it's all doomsday, dark clouds, dystopia. And I'm seeing a big smile on your face when you're talking about the work that Genesys Works is doing.
Well, and I'm thrilled. I started my career in the field of education. And so to see and kind of come full circle now to figure out how we place these young people. I don't deal with kindergarten anymore. I was school principal. Instead, I'm now dealing with the high school student just before college saying, how do we get you on this pathway? And then we also have our great alumni program where alumni come back and do internships or volunteer in the program and serve as summer trainers and summer coordinators for what we do. So it is a wonderful program. I tell people I've got one of the best jobs in the world because anytime you can put a young person on a pathway towards success, you know that the world is going to be better than it was before.
That's beautiful. Okay, Draft Day's winners at Genesys Works. Here's the kind of reviews I'd like to see you get after your summer internships. These are coming from people who've done exceptional work and be rewarded for it with trips around the world. They're talking about the white glove concierge team at Moments that prepares those trips. And if you do come away with gushing testimonials like these, one day you may be earning a Moments trip yourself. Here goes from Sal and Lena Cafiti.
We definitely decided we needed to do a little more research on this one. And not wing it like we were, young and dumb honeymooners. And I was a little bit overwhelmed with the choices. There's so many different towns within the Napa area, Sonoma, all the different vineyards. But that's where working with Moments was really helpful because they really helped curate and limit the choices and give you kind of input to help narrow it down. In the end, we chose to stay in St. Helena, which was a little bit farther north, where there were a lot of the vineyards that we, really had targeted. We wanted to go to, and it really made it a lot easier to just curate the trip and make it be what we were. It was better than we hoped. I mean, we had 4 full days. I remember when we pulled into the resort, they're like, hey, since you booked through this group, we're going to upgrade you and we got to the room and there was a porch with like a heated fire pit on it that opened to the vineyard. And that wasn't the standard room. We got that upgrade. And
that was stunning.
And like
beautiful.
All this like charcuterie and stuff waiting, Prosecco and everything waiting for us.
Yep.
That was awesome. That was definitely not.
It felt very special.
From Emma Cook.
What was fantastic about working with the luxury concierge team was, one, the fact that I was still balancing the MBA and working at the time. I was pretty hands-off with this travel planning, which was such a luxury that you had this whole team behind you that were pulling together all of the details. I mean, I'm talking about every single detail of the flight times, the pickup times, confirming the hotels. I mean, even planning the tours and what we were interested in going to see. Like, they took care of every little detail, which was such a relief and really took a lot of stress off of my plate.
From Mike and Laura Bucciala.
The concierge team was amazing. Like the Moments team, we ended up complicating things because we're like, oh, Laura's going to be in Las Vegas. She's flying out separately than I am. So she doesn't need part of the trip because part of it was a work trip. And then I was flying separately. So I needed a one way and then we needed to fly back together. So we ended up complicating and making this arrangement kind of convoluted. They handled it with just ease. Like they never made us feel bad for complicated. I was always like, oh, and we had to change a few things. They're like, we got it. Don't worry. And then they would like send it all back to us. Like, does this line up with your schedules? Is what you expected? And then we had to make a few changes, but they were great. But anyway, they also allowed us to just modify because it kind of started with like a little bit of a package, just book a round trip, book the hotel and book the tours. But then we were like, actually, we're going to tag on Grand Canyon and Vegas. And they just made it all work within the package, if you will. They just completely customized and adapted it all to our little side trips and all these kind of things.
From Maki Hosono.
This concierge company is amazing. Like, I can say they're the best. And I've worked with all the other, I've worked with a lot of concierge from this company, and they're all amazing. They're so supportive. And then they have like this magic, like they can make these trips so magical. Like, you can't even experience it on your own. And especially this trip was so hard. Like, I don't think I could ever done it with like just by myself. I couldn't plan it without them.
Best of luck, Genesys Works interns. I know you can do it.